Have you ever wondered how far someone would go to orchestrate the perfect deception? In the affluent neighborhoods of Atlanta, Georgia, where opulence and ambition intertwine like vines on mansion walls, a story unfolded that would shake the very foundations of trust and love, leaving behind a trail of devastation that no one could have foreseen. In the spring of 2023, the lives of the wealthy and respected Delaney family would become irreversibly entangled with a master manipulator, a man whose artistry and deception would prove as sophisticated as the mansions that lined their prestigious streets. This isn't just another tale of fraud or deceit, but rather a chilling narrative of how vulnerability, when expertly exploited, can lead to catastrophic consequences. Welcome to True Crime Stories Archive, your gateway to the chilling world of real-life horror. Here, we delve into the darkest corners of humanity, unearthing terrifying stories of true crime that will leave you sleeping with the lights on. If you're fascinated by the depths of human deception, make sure to subscribe to our channel and join our community of true crime enthusiasts. At the heart of this haunting tale stands Seraphina Delaney, a 45-year-old business mogul whose rise to prominence in Atlanta's corporate world had become the stuff of legend. Her success story exemplified the American dream, a self-made millionaire whose business acumen had carved her name into the city's elite circles. Yet beneath the polished exterior of her success, a profound emptiness lingered, an achingly human desire for companionship that would ultimately prove to be her greatest vulnerability. Picture a woman who had conquered every challenge the business world could throw at her, whose name adorned the mastheads of countless successful ventures, yet whose personal life remained a carefully guarded fortress of solitude. Seraphina's sprawling Georgian mansion, with its manicured gardens and elegant architecture, stood as a testament to her achievements, but also served as a gilded cage where she found herself increasingly isolated, desperately yearning for genuine connection. The story takes an even more complex turn when we consider Seraphina's relationship with her daughter, Malia. Their bond, while strong, carried the subtle strains of a mother whose dedication to success had often competed with the demands of parenthood. Malia, now on the cusp of adulthood, had grown into a perceptive young woman, carrying both the privileges and the pressures of being heir to her mother's empire. Enter stage right, Jaylen Whitaker, a 32-year-old con artist whose expertise in deception had been honed to an art form over years of calculated manipulation. Unlike the common fraudster operating in dingy backrooms or through crude internet scams, Jaylen represented a more sophisticated breed of predator. His appearance, mannerisms, and carefully constructed persona had been crafted with surgical precision, designed to infiltrate the upper echelons of society where the stakes, and potential payoffs, reached dizzying heights. Jaylen's methodology was a masterclass in psychological manipulation. Each gesture, each carefully chosen word, every seemingly spontaneous display of emotion was orchestrated with the precision of a theater director. His victims weren't chosen at random but selected through meticulous research, their vulnerabilities mapped out like coordinates on a battle plan. In the world of con artistry, Jaylen had elevated deception to a form of psychological warfare, where trust became a weapon and emotions served as ammunition. His track record was impressive, if thoroughly disturbing. Through the years, he had perfected a signature approach that left no trace and few witnesses willing to admit they had been deceived. Wealthy women across multiple states had fallen prey to his carefully orchestrated schemes, each one believing they had found genuine love, only to discover too late that they had been ensnared in an elaborate confidence game. Yet by the spring of 2023, something had begun to shift in Jaylen's calculated world. The thrill of the con, once electric and addictive, had started to fade like a drug losing its potency. The endless cycle of seduction, betrayal, and disappearance had begun to wear on him, not from any moral awakening, but from a growing sense of professional ennui. He yearned for something more substantial, not in terms of emotional connection, but in terms of financial payload. He began to dream of one final, magnificent con that would secure his future and allow him to retire from the game that had defined his existence. This restlessness led Jaylen to Atlanta, where the concentration of wealth and success stories provided fertile hunting grounds for someone of his particular talents. It was here that he first caught wind of Seraphina Delaney's story, a self-made millionaire whose personal life seemed to contain the perfect mix of success, and solitude that made her an ideal target. In the glittering world of Atlanta's social elite, opportunities for a predator like Jaylen presented themselves with clockwork regularity. Society galas, charity functions, and exclusive events served as perfect hunting grounds, each one a stage where the wealthy and influential gathered to display their success and, unknowingly, their vulnerabilities. It was at one such event, a prestigious charity gala dripping with opulence and social significance, that Jaylen's path would fatefully intersect with Seraphina Delaney's. The evening had been meticulously planned, each detail orchestrated with the precision that had become Jaylen's trademark. He had studied Seraphina's habits, her preferences, her patterns of behavior, all leading to this moment. The gala's chandeliers cast their golden light across the gathering of Atlanta's elite, creating an atmosphere of enchantment that would serve as the perfect backdrop for his carefully choreographed introduction. Seraphina, resplendent in her evening attire, commanded attention naturally. Years of corporate success had given her an air of authority that drew respect from those around her. Yet to Jaylen's practiced eye, the subtle signs of loneliness were clear as daylight: the way she held herself slightly apart from the crowd, the measured smiles that never quite reached her eyes, the occasional glances toward couples enjoying genuine companionship. The introduction, when it came, appeared completely spontaneous to all observers. Jaylen had positioned himself perfectly, creating what seemed like a chance encounter that felt predestined. His approach was calculated yet appeared effortless, his charm deployed with surgical precision. Every word, every gesture was designed to intrigue and disarm, presenting himself as someone who could match Seraphina's intelligence while offering something her success had never brought her: genuine understanding and connection. However, from the shadows of this seemingly perfect moment, Malia watched with growing unease. Young but perceptive, she observed the interaction with the kind of intuitive suspicion that often comes naturally to those who have grown up in privileged circles. Something about Jaylen's pristine persona struck a discordant note in her mind, though she couldn't quite articulate what raised her internal alarms. The evening progressed like a well-orchestrated symphony, with Jaylen conducting each movement with expert precision. His conversation with Seraphina flowed naturally, touching on subjects that demonstrated his apparent depth while carefully avoiding anything that might expose his carefully constructed facade. He showed interest in her achievements without appearing intimidated by them, displayed knowledge of her industry without seeming threatening to her position, and most importantly, exhibited a kind of emotional intelligence that made him appear uniquely capable of understanding the solitude that came with success. What followed in the weeks after the gala could only be described as a whirlwind romance that seemed to sweep through Atlanta's social circles like a tempest. Jaylen's courtship of Seraphina was executed with a level of sophistication that left even the most cynical socialites impressed. Each gesture was calculated to appear spontaneous, each moment of intimacy choreographed to seem utterly authentic. Expensive restaurants became the stages for intimate conversations, where Jaylen would listen with seemingly rapt attention as Seraphina shared stories of her business triumphs and personal struggles. Private jets whisked them away to exotic locations for impromptu weekend getaways, each destination carefully chosen to create memories that would bind Seraphina more tightly to the illusion Jaylen was crafting. The gifts began arriving with strategic regularity: rare vintage wines, bespoke jewelry, thoughtful tokens that demonstrated an apparent deep understanding of Seraphina's tastes and desires. Each present was chosen not just for its monetary value, but for its ability to strengthen the narrative. Jaylen was building that of a successful, caring man who could match Seraphina's lifestyle while fulfilling her emotional needs. Yet beneath this facade of romance, Jaylen was meticulously laying the groundwork for his ultimate con. Every romantic gesture was calculated to lower Seraphina's defenses, every shared moment designed to build a foundation of trust that he would later exploit. His apparent vulnerability in sharing carefully crafted stories from his past was nothing more than bait, drawing Seraphina deeper into his web of deception. Meanwhile, Malia's discomfort with her mother's whirlwind romance continued to grow. The speed at which Jaylen had integrated himself into their lives set off warning bells in her mind. She observed how her mother, usually so shrewd in business matters, seemed to lose all objectivity when it came to Jaylen. The woman who would spend weeks analyzing business proposals was now making significant personal decisions with barely a moment's consideration. Pause. Before we continue with this story, allow me to share something important with you. Looking at our channel analytics, it's clear that many of you watching our true crime stories are not yet subscribed. In fact, about 85% of our viewers haven't hit that subscribe button. If you're finding value in our content and want to support what we do, please take a moment to subscribe and turn on notifications. It helps us continue bringing you these meticulously researched true crime stories, and ensures you won't miss any future uploads. Now, let's get back to our story. The engagement, when it came, surprised no one in their social circle, no one except Malia. The ring was spectacular, of course, a flawless diamond that caught every light and turned it into a rainbow of promises. The proposal itself was a masterpiece of manipulation, staged at an intimate dinner on the private terrace of Atlanta's most exclusive restaurant, with the city lights spread out below them like a carpet of stars. The wedding was orchestrated to be the social event of the season, a lavish celebration that would be talked about in Atlanta's elite circles for years to come. Every detail was executed with precision, from the imported flowers that transformed the venue into an ethereal garden, to the carefully curated guest list that read like a who's who of Atlanta's business and social elite. Jaylen played his part flawlessly, appearing as the devoted groom deeply in love with his accomplished bride. The honeymoon phase that followed appeared picture-perfect on the surface, but beneath the veneer of marital bliss, Jaylen was already setting his endgame in motion. His inquiries into Seraphina's financial affairs began subtly at first, cloaked in the guise of concerned husbands seeking to protect their joint future. Each question, each suggestion about financial management was a carefully placed stepping stone leading toward his ultimate goal. As the weeks passed, Jaylen's influence over Seraphina's financial decisions grew stronger. Her usual business acumen, which had served her so well in building her empire, seemed to dim in the warm glow of marital trust. She began granting him access to accounts, signing documents, and making financial decisions based on his recommendations, all while believing she was building a future with a man who truly loved her. But as Jaylen's control over the financial aspects of their life increased, subtle changes began to manifest in the household dynamic. New security measures appeared, financial routines were altered, and the once transparent business operations of the Delaney empire began to take on an opacity that would have been unthinkable before Jaylen's arrival. Malia, watching from the sidelines, felt increasingly powerless as she observed these changes. Her mother, once her closest confidant, had become somehow distant, as if viewing the world through a lens that Jaylen had carefully crafted. The independent, strong-willed businesswoman who had raised her was transforming into someone Malia barely recognized. Yet Jaylen's most insidious manipulation was yet to come. Recognizing Malia's suspicion as a potential threat to his plans, he began a calculated campaign to neutralize her influence. His approach to Malia took on a more personal nature, blurring the lines between paternal concern and something far more sinister. He positioned himself as a mentor figure, someone who could understand and appreciate her in ways others couldn't, all while carefully laying the groundwork for a betrayal that would shake the Delaney family to its core. The psychological manipulation Jaylen employed with Malia was perhaps his most calculated and cruel deception yet. He recognized in her the vulnerability of youth combined with the complexity of being raised in wealth and privilege. His attention toward her shifted gradually, moving from casual conversations to more intimate exchanges, each interaction designed to create a forbidden sense of connection that would later prove devastating. What made this particular aspect of his con even more disturbing was the calculated nature of his approach. He would find reasons to be alone with Malia, creating situations that seemed innocent on the surface but carried undercurrents of inappropriate intimacy. A brush of his hand, standing slightly too close, holding eye contact a moment too long, all subtle actions that served to confuse and destabilize Malia's emotional state. The manipulation became more overt as time progressed. Jaylen began sharing confidences with Malia, creating an illusion of special understanding between them. He would compliment her in ways that went beyond stepfatherly affection, making observations about her beauty and intelligence that carried subtle undertones of romantic interest. Each interaction was designed to make her feel both special and somehow complicit in their growing inappropriate relationship. Meanwhile, Seraphina's life took an unexpected turn when she discovered she was pregnant. At 45, this news came as a surprise, but one that filled her with joy. The pregnancy seemed to validate her whirlwind romance with Jaylen, adding another layer to what she believed was her perfect second chance at happiness. She viewed it as a sign that all her decisions, including her rapid marriage to Jaylen, had been destined. However, fate had an even crueler twist in store. Unknown to Seraphina, her daughter Malia had also become pregnant, carrying the child of the very man who had married her mother. This devastating development was the result of Jaylen's calculated seduction, a brutal testament to the depths of his manipulation and betrayal. The parallel pregnancies created a powder keg of emotions and secrets within the Delaney household. While Seraphina celebrated her unexpected blessing, Malia struggled with the crushing weight of guilt, shame, and fear. The young woman who had once been confident and self-assured now found herself trapped in a nightmare of her own making, carrying a secret that threatened to destroy not only her life but her mother's as well. Seraphina, growing increasingly uneasy about certain financial discrepancies she had noticed, made a decision that would ultimately unravel Jaylen's carefully constructed web of lies. She hired a private investigator, a move born of her business instincts that had never fully quieted despite her emotional involvement with Jaylen. The investigation began quietly, methodically piecing together the fragments of Jaylen's past that he had so carefully hidden. The truth, when it finally emerged, did so in the most devastating way possible. One evening, while seeking to reconnect with her increasingly distant daughter, Seraphina walked in on a scene that would forever shatter her world. The sight of Jaylen and Malia in an intimate embrace brought her carefully constructed reality crashing down around her. The moment was like a photograph etched in acid, impossible to unsee, impossible to deny. The confrontation that followed was explosive. The facade of the perfect family man that Jaylen had maintained crumbled away, revealing the calculating predator beneath. His mask of charm and affection fell away, replaced by a cold, calculating demeanor that showed no remorse for the devastation he had caused. The revelation of Malia's pregnancy added another layer of horror to an already unbearable situation. But Jaylen, confronted with the collapse of his elaborate scheme, reverted to his most basic instinct: survival at any cost. As the authorities closed in, informed by the evidence gathered by the private investigator, Jaylen made a desperate final play. In a moment of panic and calculation, he took Malia hostage, using her life as leverage in an attempt to escape the consequences of his actions. The streets of Atlanta became the stage for a tense standoff. Police vehicles surrounded the area, their lights painting the night in alternating patterns of red and blue. Jaylen, now cornered and desperate, held Malia at gunpoint, demanding safe passage and threatening the life of the young woman who carried his child. In the midst of this chaos, Seraphina emerged from the crowd, her maternal instincts overriding any concern for her own safety. Her pregnant form silhouetted against the police lights, she pleaded with Jaylen to release their daughter, offering herself in Malia's place. The moment was charged with an almost unbearable tension, a mother willing to sacrifice everything to protect her child from a monster she had unwittingly invited into their lives. The standoff reached its tragic climax in a confusion of shouts, movements, and fatal miscalculations. In the chaos that ensued, shots were fired. Malia's body crumpled to the ground, followed seconds later by Jaylen himself, struck down by police bullets in the ensuing confusion. The night air, previously filled with tension and shouted demands, suddenly fell eerily silent except for the wail of approaching ambulances. The aftermath of this tragedy left the Delaney family forever altered. Malia, though seriously wounded, survived the ordeal, but the physical and emotional scars would remain with her for life. The child she carried, conceived in manipulation and revealed in tragedy, would become both a reminder of the darkest chapter in their lives and, paradoxically, a symbol of hope and renewal. Seraphina's own pregnancy continued, though now shadowed by the knowledge that her child's father was a man who had nearly destroyed everything she held dear. The empire she had built remained intact, but the woman who had once stood at its head was fundamentally changed by the experience. The story of the Delaney family serves as a chilling reminder of how vulnerability, when exploited by a skilled manipulator, can lead to unimaginable consequences. It stands as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the unbreakable bonds of maternal love, while also serving as a warning about the sophisticated predators who walk among us, wearing masks of charm and respectability. If this story has moved you, please consider subscribing to True Crime Stories Archive. Your support helps us continue bringing these important stories to light, ensuring that these cautionary tales are not forgotten. Remember to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below.